She gave him 18 years, her youth, her loyalty, her children, her fortune, her whole life in ancient Chang. And the moment his first love returned, he asked her to be understanding. So she smiled. She arranged the wedding. She welcomed the other woman into the manor. She became the perfect wife everyone praised. But no one knew the truth. In 8 days, she would leave that world forever. And when the sky above Chang'an finally lit up, the man who betrayed her would be forced to watch her live freely in a world where she no longer belonged to him. The Sky Screen Over Chang'an. Chapter 1. The Banquet of Broken Jade. In the 17th year of Baoning, spring came late to Chang'an. The apricot blossoms in the Duke of Dingguo's residence had been open for only 3 days when news reached me that Pei Yan was keeping another woman outside the manor. It came on a slip of scented paper, still carrying a faint trace of rouge. The messenger was Princess Jingyang, a woman who had once shaken half the capital over Pei Yan, only to be forced by her imperial father into another household. 3 years later, she was already a widow. Her note was very brief. Qin Wan Yi, your husband has hidden a little white lotus in Yongxing Ward. If you still have a spine, come drink tea at my residence tomorrow night. I finished reading, folded the note, and placed it in the incense burner. The ash curled upward once, like a cold laugh being burned away. Pei Yan returned during the second night watch. Mist clung to his shoulders, and his dark blue cloak carried the sandalwood fragrance I had once loved. He stood beneath the eaves and looked at me through the curtain. He still had the refined, noble bearing of the young man from 18 years ago, the one who had held an umbrella over me on Vermilion Bird Bridge. "Wan Yi," he called. I was choosing hairpins for our daughter and did not lift my head. "Does my lord need something?" He paused. In the past, if he had shown the slightest weariness, I would have put everything aside, brewed tea with my own hands, and asked whether anyone at court had made things difficult for him. Now I remained seated, my fingers moving slowly over the box of jade pins. My calmness was unfamiliar to him. "I heard Jingyang sent you an invitation." He stepped inside, his voice lowering. "You need not go tomorrow." "Why not?" He looked at me, impatience flickering in his eyes. "She likes to stir up trouble. There are already unpleasant rumors in the capital. If you go, people will only watch you as entertainment." I smiled. "What rumors?" Pei Yan was silent for a long time. At last he said, "About Shui Wan." That name was like a drop of water falling into a cold cup of tea. It was not heavy, but enough to disturb the surface. Shui Wan was the daughter of General Shui, who had guarded Longxi. The previous year, General Shui had fallen on the battlefield, and his wife had soon followed him after a long illness. Shui Wan had once been betrothed to another family, but they feared political involvement, forced her into separation, and sent her away. Pei Yan had received an imperial order to bring back the family of a loyal minister. On the road, bandits attacked, and he saved her. After that, he bought a house in Yongxing Ward so she could recover in peace. It sounded perfectly righteous. If I had not seen him holding Shui Wan's hand under the eaves after the rain, if I had not heard him say in a tenderness he had rarely used with me for 10 years, "Waner, not marrying you back then is the greatest regret of my life," perhaps I would have believed him. I placed the phoenix pin back into the box. "Does my lord wish to explain?" "It is not an explanation," he frowned. "She is not like others. The Shui family served the state with loyalty, and now she is alone. I cannot simply abandon her. Wan Yi, you have always been sensible. Do not let Jingyang provoke you." I looked at him.
In the eyes of this man, I could still see the shadow of the young scholar from years ago. White robes, sharp brows, a book in hand, promising before everyone that in the inner court of the Pei family there would be only me in this life. At that time, I had been in Beijing for only 3 years. The system told me my task was to help Pei Yan avoid the early end awaiting him in a political crisis. In exchange, I could awaken again in my old world. I had thought I was only doing a mission, but people are not stones. 18 years, 1 promise, 2 children, and countless nights waiting for the lamp in his study to go out. I had wagered half my life on the words, "I have only you." In the end, those words were merely the elegant speech of a man who had failed to marry the woman in his heart and still did not wish to lose to Princess Jingyang. Then the system sounded in my mind, its voice soft as cotton, yet cold as machinery. Host's body in the modern world has recovered. If the host agrees to open a SKY SCREEN channel broadcasting selected portions of life after return, departure from Beijing can occur in 8 days. Maximum number of companions, 12. Convertible assets, lawful dowry, and items owned by the host. 8 days. I had waited 18 years. What were 8 more days? So I did not cry. I did not question him. I merely said, "Since Miss Shui has nowhere to rely on, leaving her outside would damage her reputation. My lord should bring her into the residence and give her proper status." Pei Yan froze. I smiled, so gentle that even I found it strange. "My lord has met an old acquaintance again. It could not have been easy. I have been the principal wife for so many years. How could I not understand the virtue of helping others fulfill their wishes?" Pei Yan stared at me as though I were a stranger. He wanted to be angry, but he had no proper reason. The matter with Shui Wan was his making. The status was suggested by me. Every word I spoke aligned with etiquette, with sentiment, and with the interests of the Pei family. After a moment, he said in a low voice, "Do not speak out of temper. She and I have never crossed the line." I nodded. "I believe you." That made him even more uneasy. That night he stood outside my door for a long time. I did not invite him. Inside, my daughter, Pei Minglan, was sleeping deeply, still holding a half-finished piece of embroidery in her hand. She was 14 this year, bright and quick, fonder of riding horses than learning needlework. In Beijing, such a nature made people frown. In my world, it would be called vitality. I stroked her hair and made a slow decision in my heart. I would take Minglan with me.
As for my son, Pei Linzhou, 16 and already studying at the Imperial Academy, his future here seemed bright. If he wanted to remain, he could become an official, inherit the Pei family, and receive the support of this whole society merely because he was male. But if he stayed, sooner or later he would be caught between me, Pei Yan, Shui Wan, and the future children they might have. As a mother, I should not place such a harsh choice in the hands of a boy. I would ask him. If he hesitated, I would make sure he came with me anyway, even if I had to knock him out first. The next morning, I went to Princess Jingyang's residence. Jingyang's Jade Appreciation Banquet was famous for its luxury. 12 red sandalwood stands were arranged in the great hall, displaying jadeite hairpins, glass cups, green porcelain vases, mother-of-pearl screens. Each item was precious enough to buy a small street in the outer city. The moment I stepped inside, every gaze gathered on me like needles. Princess Jingyang wore deep red, her hair fixed with a golden phoenix pin. Her smile blazed like fire. "Madame Pei has arrived. I thought you might be too ill to leave your room." I returned the courtesy with a smile. The princess invited me. How could I dare not come? She took my hand and drew me inside. At once I saw Pei Yan. He had not come alone. Beside him stood Shui Wan, dressed in white, her hair arranged simply, her delicate face somewhat pale. Old Madame Pei was there as well, holding Shui Wan's hand and speaking to her with a kindly expression I had rarely received. The 3 of them sat together. They looked more like a family than I did. The laughter in the hall faded. One noble lady deliberately asked, "Madame Pei, who is the young woman beside Lord Pei? Why is the old madam so close to her?" Another followed, "I heard Lord Pei was hiding a beauty in Young Sing Ward. Could it be this one?" Pei Yan stood up abruptly. "Silence!" By instinct, he moved to shield Shui Wan. In that instant, I no longer felt pain. True pain had passed the night I stood behind the wall of the house in Young Sing Ward. I had cried then until I could barely breathe. Today, only a dried wound remained. If someone touched it, it stung a little, but it no longer bled. Jingyang tilted her head and looked at me, waiting for me to rage, to weep, to become the capital's joke. Instead, I pointed to the honey-colored jade bracelet on the nearest stand. "Princess, is that bracelet for sale?" The entire hall went silent. Jingyang's eyes widened. "Qin Wan Yi, your husband brought another woman before you, and you are asking whether I sell bracelets?" "It is beautiful," I said sincerely, "and that set of green porcelain. If the princess is not selling, I will look elsewhere." Jingyang laughed from anger. "Have you lost your senses?" No, I was very clear. The system had just scanned the hall and informed me that the bracelet and the green porcelain were the 2 items with the highest convertible value that Jingyang could actually transfer. The other treasures were connected to imperial ritual. Even if I bought them, I would not be able to take them. Gold and jewels from Dajing had to pass through system liquidation when entering the modern world. The more assets I gathered, the steadier the children's future would be. I had not come to compete for a husband. I had come to buy a future.
Jing Yang stared at me for a long while. At last, she waved her hand. Fine, I sell them. I sell them all to you. Pei Yan has behaved like that, and you still have the mood to buy things? I truly underestimated you. I bowed in thanks and ordered Pei Shuang to pay with banknotes. When I carried the items toward the door, Pei Yan chased after me. Wan Yi, do not be like this. What happened today is not as it appears. I brought Wan because the princess invited her first. Mother was also there. There was nothing improper. I looked at him, then at Shui Wan standing behind him with reddened eyes, looking like a white flower soaked by rain. I said gently, I understand. My lord values loyalty, and Miss Shui is pitiful. It is only that her parents have been gone for less than a year, and she has only just separated from her former family. If the two of you appear too close, outsiders will say my lord could not even wait through her mourning period, and that Miss Shui lacks restraint. My lord is a pillar of the court. You should be careful. Shui Wan trembled. Pei Yan pressed his lips together. She has already suffered enough. Why must you speak so sharply? I smiled. I spoke mildly. Outsiders will speak far worse. He had no answer. I entered the carriage. The curtain fell, blocking his face from the spring sunlight. Pei Shuang knelt beside me and asked softly, Madam, do you truly wish to let Miss Shui enter the residence? Of course. I opened the box and examined the jade bracelet, already calculating the asset list in my heart. If she does not enter the residence, how can everyone relax their guard? Pei Shuang was silent, then lowered her head and smiled. She had followed me since she was 10, an orphan I had found during the flood in Jiangnan. People in the residence said I acted strangely and liked taking children with no home. Only I knew that anyone who had once been passed from one hand to another understood how precious freedom was. I saved them, and they saved me with loyalty no silver could buy. The carriage rolled along Chang'an Street. Outside, Chang'an flourished. Wine shop banners flew in the wind, peddlers called out, and hoofbeats mixed with the sound of wheels. I had once thought this place was home. Now I only saw it as a beautiful painting hanging on someone else's wall. I could admire it. I could even regret leaving it, but I did not have to remain inside it.
Chapter 2. The Most Sensible Woman. No sooner had I returned to the Pei residence than old Madame Pei's people arrived before the chair in my courtyard had even warmed. Nanny Chang stood outside the door, her face as cold as ever. Madam, the old madam invites you to Xi'an Hall. Invites, I set down the jade box and smiled. Or summons. Nanny Chang choked on her words. In the past, I had always given her face. Old Madame Pei did not like me, but she needed my dowry to support the dignity of the Pei household, so outwardly she still called me daughter-in-law. Whenever she was angry, Nanny Chang would come to invite me over. I knew going meant a lecture, and kneeling meant humiliation, but for Pei Yan and for the children's reputation, I had usually endured. Now I had 8 days left. Kneeling even once felt like a waste of my knees. I changed clothes and took Pei Shuang with me to Xi'an Hall. Old Madame Pei sat on the Lohan couch, both hands on a dragon-headed cane, her expression dark. Pei Yan was there as well, standing beside the window as if the matter had nothing to do with him. As soon as I entered, the old madam barked, "Kneel!" I tilted my head toward Nanny Chang. Is mother's leg pain troubling her mood? How could you servants let her become so upset? Nanny Chang's eyes widened. Old Madame Pei slammed her cane to the floor. Chin, today at the princess's residence, you made the Pei family lose all face, and you still pretend innocence? I made the Pei family lose face? I sat calmly in the lower chair, without waiting for permission. I bought a few pieces of jade. If anyone lost face, mother should ask the person who brought Miss Shui to the banquet. Pei Yan looked over. Wan Yi? I smiled at him. My lord is here too. Perfect. Let her speak clearly. The old madam trembled with anger. What does it matter if a capable man has some outside connections? He is an important official. He had to care for the family of a loyal minister. As his principal wife, you should help stabilize the inner court. Instead, you push him into public gossip. I nodded. Mother is right. That is why I have thought of a proper solution.
Pei Yan suddenly seemed to sense danger. I said, Shui Mon is the daughter of a loyal minister. Her status is not low. If she remains outside without a name or position, the public will make ugly guesses. If she is brought in as a concubine, it will seem as if the Pei family used power to pressure a helpless young woman. Therefore, we should ask His Majesty to grant her the rank of secondary wife. First, it preserves her reputation. Second, it protects the Pei family's reputation of righteousness. Third, it proves that my lord and she are innocent and joined only for the greater good. Sion Hall fell silent. Old Madame Pei had likely never expected me to say such a thing. Pei Yan had expected it even less. He looked at me with shock, anger, and an unrest he could not hide. I do not agree, he said, each word heavy. I asked, why? Does my lord wish Miss Shui to bear the name of an outside woman for life? I told you there is nothing between us. Then all the more reason to give her a clean standing. I smiled. Or does my lord wish to separate from me and marry her as principal wife?
Old Madame Pei frowned at once. The Pei family might need Shui Wan to claim a reputation for loyalty, but they absolutely did not wish to lose Qin Wan Yi. My dowry was not merely large. Over 18 years under my management, it had become a network of shops, farmland, pawn houses, and transport routes from Jiangnan to Chang'an. The Pei residents spent lavishly and never lacked silver, largely because of it. Pei Yan looked at me for a long time. Must you say such hurtful words? The person being hurt is not me. I poured tea and blew lightly across the surface. Miss Shui is the one my lord has placed in a difficult position. If you cherish her, you should give her a name. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. You know very well I do not want to marry her. I lifted my head. Then what does my lord want? Do you want her to wait for you every night in Yongxing Ward, while I remain in the Pei residence, to be filial to your mother, raise your children, manage the household, receive guests, and guard the reputation of a lifetime's devotion? My lord, all the good fortune in this world cannot belong to you alone. His expression changed completely. Old Madame Pei struck the floor with her cane. Quinn, what manner of speech is that? I did not argue with her. Debating with someone who believed a man's roaming heart was as natural as the sun rising was no different from explaining state law to a mosquito. Instead, I changed direction. Mother, this matter also concerns the court. General Shui fell while serving, and the Longxi soldiers are already dissatisfied that compensation has been slow. If rumors spread that Lord Pei took advantage of the orphan daughter of a loyal minister, the censors will not let it pass. But if it becomes a marriage granted by His Majesty out of compassion, every harsh word will become praise. What does mother think? The old madam stiffened. Pei Yan was intelligent, of course. He understood that this was the best path. The problem was that he did not want me to leave the board. He wanted a gentle Shui Wan outside and a steady Qin Wan Yi inside. He wanted guilt without cost. He wanted me to be jealous, but not truly let go. I set down the teacup. I am tired. If mother has nothing else, I shall return and prepare the betrothal gift list for Miss Shui. Stop! Pei Yan blocked my path. My lord is mistaken. I am helping you clean up the situation. His hand clenched. Wan Yi, you once said you would trust me no matter what happened. I almost laughed. I trust you, I said. I trust that you are still the Pei Yan of Chang'an who weighs profit and loss most clearly. I trust that you will choose the path most beneficial to yourself. It was as if I had struck him where it truly hurt. I walked past him. At the door, I suddenly remembered something and turned back. Ah, the house in Yongxing Ward. On the left is property belonging to Princess Jingyang. On the right is the shop I bought as part of Ming Lan's dowry. My lord chose the middle house very well.
Pei Yan's face drained of color. I continued, the wall on the right is a little thin. Next time my lord wishes to speak from the heart to Miss Shui, remember to lower your voice. Old Madame Pei was stunned. Pei Yan stood frozen. I did not look at him again. Back in my courtyard, Pei Shuang closed the door and laughed until her shoulders shook. Madam, my lord's face just now was truly worth seeing. I laughed too, yet when the laughter passed, my chest felt empty. 18 years are not a passing reign. They are a long season of rivers. Even once you decide to climb ashore, your skirts remain wet and your skin remains cold. Seeing my silence, Pei Shuang knelt and massaged my knees. Do not be sad. Young Mess and young Master both love you. At the mention of my two children, my heart softened. Call Lin Zhou back to the residence. Tell him mother has something important to discuss. Bring Ming-lan as well." At dusk, the two children entered together. Lin Zhou was already a head taller than me. His brows resembled Pei Yan's, but his eyes were more like mine, clear, awake, not easily blurred by pretty words. Ming-lan ran faster, bursting in to hug me before the maid could lift the curtain. "Mother, did father really keep someone outside?" Her question was so direct that Pei Shuang drew in a breath. I looked at my children. Ming-lan's eyes were red, and Lin Zhou was gripping his sleeve tightly. Clearly, they had already heard enough rumors. I had once wanted to hide it from them, to keep their image of their father from collapsing too quickly. But Pei Shuang was right. Sooner or later they would know. If they heard it from outsiders, the wound would be deeper. I pulled them both to sit. "Yes." Ming-lan bit her lip. "Then will mother forgive him?" "No." Lin Zhou looked at me. "Do you want to separate?" "I want to leave this place." Both children looked up at once. I did not lie to them. I told them that I came from another world. I told them the system had once given me a mission, and that my true body in the modern world had recovered. I told them that in that place, women could study, work in public office, do business, travel far, live alone, marry or not marry. I told them that no one could legally buy or sell another person, and that a person was not born to be anyone's servant. Ming-lan's breathing quickened. "Women can study like men?" "Yes." "Can they ride in the streets?" "They can drive vehicles faster than horses." "Can they choose not to marry?" "Yes." She stared, tears rolling down silently. Lin Zhou was quieter longer. He asked, "If I stay, will mother stay?" I shook my head. "No." He asked again, "What if I insist on staying?" I looked at him and answered honestly, "Then I will make sure you come with me, even if you blame me later. I will not let you remain in a house about to have a stepmother and children competing over inheritance. And I will not let you learn to be like your father, believing affection and advantage can be calculated like accounts." Lin Zhou lowered his head. After a while, the 16-year-old boy knelt before me and rested his forehead on my knee as he had when he was small. "The place mother wishes to go must be very good," he said hoarsely. "I will go with you." Ming-lan hugged my arm tight. "I will go too. I want to go somewhere women can run in the sun." I held them both. Outside, the spring wind stirred the bamboo curtain. In my mind, the system reported softly. Companion list recorded. Pei Lin Zhou, Pei Ming-lan, Pei Shuang. 9 slots remaining. Time remaining 7 days and 12 double hours. I closed my eyes. 7 days would be enough to sell away a lifetime of endurance.
Chapter 3. Selling a Lifetime as Madam. 3 days before the appointed return, the Quinn family came to the Pei residence. Leading them was my mother, Madame Quinn, in dark brocade, with a flower ornament on her brow, still as dignified as in my memory. Beside her walked my elder sister, Quinn Wandong, the daughter my parents had always loved more than me. Back then, when I had crossed into Quinn Wanyi's body, I opened my eyes to find myself a concubine-born daughter recorded under the principal wife's name. I had status, but no affection. My father needed me to marry into the Pei family to build connections. My mother needed me to behave so the Quinn family would not be implicated. The bond between us was thinner than paper soaked in water. As soon as they sat down, Madame Quinn dismissed the maids. "Wanyi, you are a mother yourself. Why are you still so stubborn?" she sighed. "Pei Yan is a man of ability. All these years he has had only you, which is already rare. Now he pities Miss Shui. What is wrong with enduring a little?" Quinn Wandong sipped her tea slowly, her gaze measuring me from head to toe. "You must not think that having a son means you no longer need to keep your husband. Once a man is pushed away, it is hard to draw him back. A clever woman knows when to soften." I obediently nodded. Mother and elder sister are right. Both of them paused, apparently not expecting me to be so easy to persuade. Madame Quinn continued, "I heard you wish to make Shui a second wife. That will not do. A second wife will share power with you, and later if she bears children." I set down my cup, my eyes faintly red. "I do not wish it either, but Lord Pei will not let her become a concubine. I am only the principal wife. How could I bear to make matters difficult for the woman in my husband's heart?" Quinn Wandong nearly choked on her tea. I lowered my head and made my voice even softer. "In truth, I have thought it through. Managing the Pei residence alone for 18 years has worn me out. Accounts, shops, farmland, rituals, relatives, 360 days a year without a true day of rest. If someone can share the burden, I will be lighter." Madame Quinn looked at me suspiciously. "You truly think that?" "Truly.
I wipe the corner of my eye. It is only that outsiders will laugh at me for being useless, and that is a little hard to bear. Elder sister once said that if one's heart feels uncomfortable, one should stay outside for a few days. I am planning to go to the suburban estate to recover. After Miss Shui's entry ceremony is finished, I will return as the generous principal wife.
After she said it, her expression became complicated. Her own husband kept 4 concubines. One had already borne 2 sons. Qin Wandong advised me to be generous, yet her own words pierced her. She looked at me as though I were an unbroken mirror. The longer she looked, the more uncomfortable she became. I showed gratitude. Elder sister truly thinks of me. Madame Qin patted my hand, her tone gentler than usual. It is good that you understand. For a woman in this life, blessings come from being able to endure. I smiled. Blessings from endurance? No. Endurance only makes others think you do not know pain. After the Qin family left, Pei Shuang stepped out from the side room, her face unpleasant. Madam, my lord was behind the screen and heard everything. I know. Then Madam said it on purpose for him to hear? Yes. I opened the ledgers. He fears I will cause trouble, so I will let him feel at ease. Only when he relaxes can we move easily. Pei Shuang looked at the mountain of account books on the table and asked softly, Madam truly means to sell everything? Everything. It wasn't only my dowry, it was 18 years of work built by my own hands, silk shops in the East Market, a medicine hall in Anren Ward, 2 docks in Luoyang, 300 mu of good land outside Chang'an, a small jade mine in the Western Hills, 5 rental houses, a transport convoy, grain warehouses, silk warehouses. Every item bore my traces. I had once thought that one day I would give it all to Minglan and Linzhou as support. But if they remained in Dajing, support could also become shackles. The system said assets could only be converted if ownership was clear and transferred into system storage before departure. Therefore, I had to sell them, exchange them into gold, jade, and deposit documents recognized by the system. This required buyers powerful enough that Pei Yan would not dare investigate, and a seller clear-headed enough not to hesitate. The first person I sought out was Princess Jingyang. When she heard that I wanted to sell 2 silk shops, she laughed coldly. Has Pei Yan made you so angry that you are breaking up your fortune? I said, will the princess buy? At 30% below market price, I will. Done. Jingyang was stunned. You've really lost your senses. I looked at her. I need silver quickly. The princess needs good shops. Neither of us loses. She studied me for a long time, then lowered her voice. Qin Wanyi, are you planning to leave the Pei family? I smiled and did not answer. Jingyang was proud but not foolish. She had once loved Pei Yan, so she understood him. She had also lost to ritual rules, so she understood me. In the end, she signed the contracts and introduced several other buyers, a royal consort who liked good farmland, a Jiangnan merchant who wanted docks, and a marquis who needed grain warehouses. The news was hidden well. The buyers all enjoyed watching the Pei family's drama and enjoyed even more seizing a bargain from a noble household cracking at the seams. No one informed Pei Yan.
Inside the residence, I continued performing the role of virtuous principal wife. I had people send vegetables, fine wine, red cloth, wedding candles, and other supplies to the main courtyard, saying they were for Shui Wan's entrance ceremony. Old Madame Pei was both suspicious and pleased. Pei Yan came to my courtyard more often. He watched me write the gift list, his expression complicated. Wan Yi, if you are unhappy, you do not need to force yourself. I did not lift my head. Is my lord unhappy? I do not want you to be like this. Then how does my lord want me? I asked. Weeping, breaking things, striking Miss Shui? Then let outsiders say Kan Wan Yi is unworthy of principal wife? Or does my lord want me to hold you and beg you not to go, so you can know that you are still important? Pei Yan was silent. I sighed and softened my tone. My lord, I am tired. Since you have brought her back, let her come in. After this, I will manage my own matters, she can serve you, and mother will have someone to talk to. Is that not good? And you? He asked. My brush paused. Me? I smiled. I will rest. He looked at me, as though trying to find a crack in that smile. But I had performed for 18 years. I once performed the role of a woman who loved him so much she forgot the road home. Now performing a disappointed yet sensible wife, what difficulty was there? That night, the system inventoried assets until midnight. Conversion Phase 1 complete. Gold ingots, raw jade, jewels, deposit contracts, estimated modern liquidation value, approximately 92 million yuan. I was drinking tea and nearly choked. How much? Approximately 92 million yuan. Note, special real estate and antiques not yet liquidated.
I was silent for a long time. Then I laughed. For 18 years I had stayed up late over ledgers, counting carts of rice, bolts of silk, flood seasons in Jiangnan, and shipments through mountain passes. I had thought I was doing it for the Pei family, for my children, for the title of madam. It turned out that all of it had quietly built the bridge that would take me home. On the fourth day, the imperial decree arrived. The emperor granted marriage between Pei Yan and Shui Wan, declaring that Lord Pei had saved the orphan daughter of a loyal minister, and that such righteousness deserved praise. Lady Shui was gentle and worthy, and would enter the Pei residence as second madam, keeping the family order alongside the principal wife. The wording was so beautiful that if I had not known the truth, I might have applauded. Old Madame Pei was visibly delighted. Shui Wan wept before the incense table and thanked imperial grace. After Pei Yan accepted the decree, he looked at me. I lowered my head at the exact right moment, pretending to hide grief. Guests praised my generosity. Outsiders shifted from mockery to admiration. The Pei family escaped the mud of rumor with a single imperial decree. Power was truly the finest brush. It could write infidelity as loyalty and betrayal as a romantic tale. That afternoon, I asked permission to go to the suburban estate to choose local goods for the wedding feast. Pei Yan hesitated, but in front of the old madam and Shui Wan it was inconvenient to stop me. He merely sent more people along, saying the road was not safe. I cheerfully agreed. The convoy left the Pei residence in pale sunlight. Inside the carriage, Ming Lan lifted the curtain and looked at the streets with bright eyes. Pei Yan, holding a small box of books, sat opposite me. He had chosen to take works on economics, military strategy, a few poetry volumes, and had secretly tucked a Pei family seal into his pouch. I saw it, but said nothing. This child was clever. He understood that leaving was not a sightseeing trick. He was cutting ties to the past in his own way. Pei Shuang checked the list of companions. Herself, Pei Hong, who knew medicine, Pei Yun, who was skilled in cooking, Ah Mu, the driver, Li Jing, captain of the guards, 2 young maids, Sha Dou and Su Mei, and an elderly nurse named Madame Lu, who had once cared for Ming Lan. Together with me and the 2 children, we filled the 12 slots exactly. Some people did not wish to go. Some still had parents in Dajing. I forced no one. I gave silver, returned their service contracts, and let them choose. In the end, those who stepped into the carriages were all people who had no home beyond me. The suburban estate was a cover. When night fell, chest after chest of gold and jade entered system storage. The remaining wooden chests were filled with stones and old cloth, then sealed as usual. If Pei Yan opened them after I left, he likely would understand what emptiness looked like. On the day before the wedding, the Pei residents sent people to fetch us. The messenger said, "My lord says Madam, young master, and young miss should return for the ceremony, lest outsiders speculate." I smiled. Of course we must return. If I did not return, how could I say farewell?
Chapter 4. The Wedding Hall Beneath Spring Thunder. On the day Shui Wan entered the residence, the sky had been overcast since morning. Chang'an loved a spectacle. Although dark clouds pressed down over the tiled roofs, guests still crowded the Pei residence. They came to witness imperial Grace, the orphan daughter of a loyal minister, Lord Pei, whose name filled the capital, and also to see whether the principal wife, Qin Wanyi, was truly generous or merely swallowing bitter. I sat before the dressing table and let Pei Shuang arrange my hair. She chose a pale jade green dress for me, not bright enough for people to say I was competing with the bride, and not plain enough to be called disrespectful. In my hair, she placed only one white jade pin. In the mirror, a 36-year-old woman looked back at me. I was no longer the 21-year-old girl thrown into a strange world, nor the young wife waiting every night for her husband to return. I saw myself calm, and therefore beautiful. Ming Lan ran in, already dressed in a lighter, more practical outfit. She took my hand, her palm cold. "Mother, are we truly leaving today?" "Yes." "I am a little afraid." "So am I," said honestly. "But fear does not mean we do not go." Lin Zhou stood outside the door and smiled faintly when he heard that. "Mother's words are good. I will remember them." I stood and looked around the room where I had lived for 18 years. The pear blossom embroidered screen, the ebony chess table, the bronze incense burner, the bookcase, the makeup box more than half emptied. Everything was familiar, yet none of it made me reluctant.
People do not leave because they have no memories. They leave because memories are no longer enough to keep their feet in place. Outside, wedding horns sounded. Pei Yan had gone to receive the bride. Afraid that I would cause trouble, the old madam did not allow me to greet guests. Nanny Chang came to invite me very late, saying the auspicious hour was near, and second madam had entered the residence, so principal madam should go to the main hall to witness the rites. I followed her through the long corridor. Red silk hung on both sides. The double happiness character was pasted everywhere. Servants bowed deeply when they saw me, and I could not tell whether it was respect or pity. At the entrance to the main hall, I stopped. Inside, Shui Wan stood beside Pei Yan under her red veil. He wore deep red wedding robes, his back straight, his tension impossible to hide. Perhaps he still feared I would suddenly disrupt the ceremony. Princess Jingyang sat among the honored guests, wine cup in hand, her eyes shining as if she were watching the best play of her life. The ritual official called "First Bow to Heaven and Earth." Pei Yan and Shui Wan bent down. At that exact moment, thunder tore open the sky. The whole hall shook. Guests looked outside in alarm. Wind whipped the red silk into wild movement. Incense and candles trembled. I stood at the threshold and watched Pei Yan turn his head toward me. In my mind, the system's voice rang clear. Return countdown begins. 30. I took one step inside. 29. Pei Yan frowned. Wan Yi, today is an important day. Do not. 28. I cut him off. Pei Yan? The whole hall fell silent. I rarely called him by name before outsiders. He looked at me, his expression gradually changing. I said, I am going home. Someone let out a soft laugh, thinking I was speaking in anger. Old Madam Pei stood up abruptly. Jin, what do you intend to do? 20.
Minglan and Lin Zhou came to my side. Pei Shuang, Pei Heng, Pei Yun, Amu, Li Jing, Xiaodou, Su Mei, and Madame Liu appeared one after another beneath the corridor. Silvery white mist came from nowhere, coiling around our feet like water. Pei Yan finally sensed that something was wrong. He abandoned Shui Wan and rushed toward me. Wan Yi! 10. I watched him run. He was still handsome, still the man who had once softened my heart. But in this instant, I suddenly remembered the university campus in Hangzhou, the summer heat that melted ice cream on my hand, the small rented room, and my plump yellow cat Dodo lying across my laptop. Those things had belonged to me before I became Madame Pei. Pei Yan gripped my sleeve. 9. Light poured down from the sky. His hand passed through the hem of my dress as if through mist. Do not go. Whatever you want, I will agree. I will not marry. I will send her away. Wan Yi, do not frighten me. Behind him, Shui Wan stood with her red veil blown askew, revealing a bloodless face. I looked at him with pity. Pei Yan, you always think there is still time, because in the past I always waited for you, but not everyone remains in the same place. 3. Minglan gripped my hand tightly. Lin Zhou stood straight, eyes red but head unturned. 2. I said my final words. I wish you and Miss Shui harmony for 100 years. As for the 2 children, I am taking them with me. 1. Light burst open. I heard Pei Yan call my name, as though the sound had been torn from his chest. I heard old Madame Pei shouting. I heard Princess Jingyang laugh until her voice broke. Pei Yan, you wronged a sky maiden. Then all sound stretched into wind. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in a bright white room. There was no sandalwood, no maid's footsteps, no curved tiled roofs. Before me stood a large glass door overlooking a modern city. Far away, high-rises layered beneath a pale blue sky. Cars flowed along the roads like bright veins. Cool air from the air conditioner brushed my face. Minglan stared open-mouthed at the view beyond the glass. Mother, is this an immortal realm? I laughed, and tears suddenly fell. No, I hugged her. This is home. The system appeared on a translucent screen. Code 0917, Ah Yao serving the host. Legal identities for companions are being completed. Ancient assets are being liquidated. Bank account activated. Initial available balance 83,600,000 yuan. Converted real estate, 1 garden villa in Hangzhou, 2 apartments in Shanghai, 8 rental apartments in Suzhou, 3 business vehicles, and 1 antique warehouse pending appraisal. Pei Yun sat down on the floor. Madam, that number, how much silver is it? I wiped away my tears and answered seriously. A great deal, enough that none of you will ever need to sell your lives to anyone again. Madame Liu touched the identity card the system had just issued, trembling as she read the words Ah Yao taught her. Citizen. Ah Yao continued. The Sky Screen channel is open. According to the agreement, selected portions of the host's life will be broadcast to Dajing. Private content will be automatically shielded. At that very moment in Dajing, a vast screen of light appeared over the sky of Chang'an.
At first, it was only a silver line among the dark clouds. Then it widened, flat as a lake standing upright, translucent and yet clear. People in the city lifted their heads. Farmers in the fields put down their hoes. Guards on the walls forgot to sound their horns. On the sky screen, my image appeared. Hair unpinned, ancient robes not yet changed, standing in a brilliant room with a modern city behind me. Some people knelt and cried that it was a miracle. Some were frightened to tears. In the Pei residence, guests poured into the courtyard. Pei Yan stood under the eaves, his red wedding robe bright as fresh paint. He looked up at me on the sky screen, his eyes empty. Shu Wan looked as well. The color on her lips trembled. Perhaps only now did she understand that what she had won was merely a house after its true owner had left. Princess Jingyang threw back her head and laughed until tears streamed down. Qin Wanyi, so it was not that you were not angry, you simply could not be bothered to be angry with them. On the sky screen, Ming Lan walked to the glass door and looked at the traffic below. She whispered, "Mother, can women here truly go anywhere?" I opened the balcony door. Modern wind came in, carrying the scent of sunlight, concrete, and greenery after rain. "Yes," I said, "from today on, you may go wherever you wish." Those words crossed the sky screen and fell upon every roof, every alley, every dim kitchen in Dajing. Many women lifted their heads. They did not know whether the world in the sky was real, but they heard one sentence, "You may go wherever you wish." A single sentence can be like a seed falling into dry earth.
Chapter 5. A City Without Service Contracts. During the first 3 days after our return, my household lived like a group of people lost inside an immortal tale. Ming Lan watched the elevator doors open and close and did not dare step inside. Pei Hong heard the vacuum cleaner and drew a silver hairpin as if to defend herself. Ah Mu saw the car lock automatically and feared it was an iron beast, insisting on standing outside to observe it for a full hour. Lin Zhou was calmer, but that calm lasted only until he saw an electronic library. "How many books are inside this little board?" he asked, holding the tablet with a faint tremor in his voice. Ah Yao answered, "Several million times more than the Imperial Academy of Dajing." Lin Zhou was silent for a moment, then he hugged the tablet as if it were an imperial decree. I did not rush to take them outside. People arriving from an ancient society into the modern world needed to learn the most basic things. Electric lights were not spells. Tap water should be boiled before drinking. The toilet was not a hidden mechanism. Money was not paper silver notes. Police were not the private runners of powerful officials. And, most importantly, no one was allowed to kneel to me anymore. The last was the hardest. Madame Liu was used to calling me Madam. When I asked her to use my name, her face reddened as if she were committing a great offense. I had no choice but to compromise. "Call me Sister Wanyi." She choked over it for half a day, before finally whispering, "Sister Wanyi." Pei Yun laughed so hard she nearly fell, but when it was her turn, she stammered no better. When the lawyer, arranged by Ah Yao, came to the villa, I had everyone sit together and listen. The lawyer's surname was Li, a woman in her 40s with short hair and a clear manner of speaking. She explained citizenship rights, employment contracts, property ownership, the right to study, personal liberty, and laws against buying and selling people. When Madame Liu heard the sentence, "No person has the right to buy or sell another person," she began to cry. She had been sold into the Qin residence at 7, passed through 3 owners, and eventually came to care for Ming Lan. In all her life, she had never imagined that a service contract could become invalid before the law. "Then, if an old master comes looking?" she asked, her voice shaking. Lawyer Li answered gently, "There is no old master. You are yourself. Anyone who forces you into servitude is breaking the law." Pei Shuang kept her head lowered for a long time. When she lifted it, her eyes were red but bright. That scene was broadcast back to Dajing by the sky screen.
On a street in Chang'an, a maid carrying a basin of water stopped. Her mistress scolded her to lower her head and work, but she still stole a glance toward the sky. On the screen, the woman in the suit said, "Every person's body belongs to that person." The maid did not understand everything, but she heard the words, "every person."
In a small village outside Luoyang, a woman hiding behind the stove after being hurt by her husband saw a modern hospital on the sky screen the next day. A female doctor bandaged a patient, and the police took the aggressor away. The woman covered her face and wept, thinking for the first time, perhaps being hurt was not my fate. Of course, not everyone was pleased. Da Jing's court became chaotic. The emperor ordered celestial officials to measure the sky screen, Taoist priests to build altars, and imperial guards to patrol, but the sky screen appeared everywhere. If they covered people's eyes in Chang'an, it appeared in Longxi. If they forbade gatherings in the market, the people watched from the fields. It did not obey imperial commands, fear blades, or require incense. It simply silently showed what Yao chose to show. On the 5th day, the sky screen showed me taking everyone to a supermarket. If the elevator frightened them, the supermarket stole their souls. Min Lan stood before the fruit section holding a kiwi. Is this a bird egg with fur? Pei Yun looked down the long row of seasonings, her eyes bright as stars. Sister Wanyi, they sell this many sauces here? This chili sauce is so red. Is it spicy? This powder smells like milk. And this, instant noodles? Amu pushed the cart with the seriousness of escorting military grain. Li Jin passed the toy aisle, saw a glowing sword model, and stopped for so long that Xiao Dou had to tug his sleeve. I let them choose what they liked. No need to ask an owner, no need to record it in the household expenses, no fear of being scolded for extravagance. For the first time, buying a cup of milk tea became a ritual of freedom. Min Lan took her first sip, eyes round. Sweet, cold, there are soft pearls inside. I asked, "Do you like it?" She nodded again and again, then suddenly looked at the schoolgirls walking past in uniforms. They laughed and talked, carrying backpacks, hair tied high, skirts to the knee, their steps light as wind. Min Lan stared entranced. "Mother, I want to go to school." "Then you will. Not lessons of woman's obedience. Not those. I want to learn to ride. No, to drive. I want to learn why lights shine, why airplanes can fly, why people can speak into small boxes. You can learn all of it." She held her milk tea and smiled until her eyes curved. The sky screen carried that smile back to Da Jing. Many who had once met Miss Pei were astonished. In the Pei residence, Min Lan had been a young lady expected to be proper, to speak softly, to smile without showing teeth. On the sky screen, she stood in a shopping mall and smiled as brightly as a little sun. Pei Yan watched the sky screen in his study. In only a few days, he had visibly thinned. Court documents lay on the desk, but he could not read them. Whenever the screen lit, he stopped everything. Shui Wan brought soup and said gently, "Husband, you should rest." The word husband made him flinch. He had once thought marrying Shui Wan would mend the regret of his youth, but when she truly entered the Pei residence, everything felt different. She was gentle, fragile, and needed his protection. He had liked that before. Now that need exhausted him. He remembered Qin Wan Yi standing behind him like a wall. Only after the wall disappeared did he understand how long he had leaned on it. He looked at the sky screen. Qin Wan Yi was at a bank, sitting before a young female employee, signing documents. Her married woman's hair arrangement was gone. She had loosely tied her hair behind her neck. A cream blouse, black trousers, clean, neat, unfamiliar. The employee called her Miss Qin. No one called her Madame Pei. Pei Yan suddenly felt his heart open into an empty space. In the modern world, I did not care what he thought. I was busy. I had to arrange tutoring for Minglan and Lin Zhao. The two children knew traditional Chinese characters and had an excellent foundation in classical literature, but mathematics, science, and English were almost from zero. Yao suggested a rapid adaptation package, but I refused most of it. A person must pass through understanding step by step. One cannot pour an entire world into the mind like water into a jar. Lin Zhao learned mathematics quickly. He became fascinated by stock markets, business models, and corporate law. After understanding that merchants here were not ranked beneath scholars, farmers, and craftsmen, he asked me, "If I want to do business, will people look down on me?" I answered, "If you do it properly, pay taxes, and create value for society, people may respect you." He thought for a long time, then said, "Then I will not become an official."
I smiled. You can pursue any lawful profession. Minglan loved the biology laboratory in her online lessons. She watched the seed germination video under the microscope again and again, then said, "In Dajing, people go hungry every year. If we learn better ways to grow crops, will fewer people suffer?" I stroked her head. "It is possible." "Then I will study agriculture." A young woman once forced to learn embroidery so she could marry well, now chose to learn how to make rice grow better. To me, that choice was more beautiful than any phoenix hairpin. Pei Yun adapted fastest. She loved the modern kitchen so much she called the air fryer her fire dragon treasure. I filmed a few clips of her making osmanthus cakes, hand-pulled noodles, and a lower sugar version of candied hawthorn, and posted them online. Unexpectedly, the videos exploded. Viewers loved her classical manner, loved the way she said, "Today we shall use electric fire," and loved the hands that decorated cakes like embroidery. 1 month later, Pei Yun had her own account and a rapidly growing following. Holding the phone, she asked me seriously, "Sister Wan Yi, these people praise me. Do I need to reward them with silver?" I laughed until my stomach hurt. Pei Hung was introduced to study with a traditional medicine doctor. She already knew pulse diagnosis and herbal prescriptions, and she was willing to learn anatomy and modern pharmacology. Li Jing, the guard captain, once as hard as stone, was invited by a film crew to advise on martial arts after a video of him teaching Ah Mu with a wooden spear spread online. Ah Mu passed his driving test after failing the written portion 3 times. When he received his license, he held the small card and cried as if he had placed first in the imperial examinations. Everyone found a path. So did I. In the past, my life had revolved around the mission, Pei Yan, the Pei family, and my children. Now that I had returned, I had money, freedom, and a group of people to care for. Yet as everything slowly settled, I suddenly had to ask myself, "Qin Wan Yi, what do you want?" The question sounded simple, yet strange. I began walking alone by Sis Lake in the mornings. No maid, no carriage, no one studying my face to guess whether my husband favored me. Only wind passing through my hair, joggers moving by, and birds calling from willow branches. I bought coffee, sat by the water, and read the news on my phone. On Dajing's sky screen, that image was shown for a long while. A woman sat alone by a lake, face uncovered, not afraid of rumor, not waiting for anyone's permission. To people of the modern world, it was just an ordinary morning. To many women of Dajing, it was more miraculous than flying vehicles, electric lights, or towers touching the sky. Freedom does not always begin with grand events. Sometimes it begins with a woman sitting quietly by a lake, drinking what she likes and thinking what she wished.
Chapter 6. Seeds Falling into Dajing. The sky screen did not merely show our life, it stole sleep from Dajing. At first, officials called it sorcery. They said the sky maiden Qin was bewitching the people. They said the world in the sky violated human order, that women did not observe propriety, servants did not know their place, and children argued with their parents. But their scolding grew weaker with time, because the people had eyes. They saw bright, clean hospitals where female doctors saved lives and no one called them lowly. They saw schools where boys and girls sat in the same classroom, raised their hands together, and ran across the same field. They saw high-speed trains crossing the countryside and ordinary people buying tickets to travel 1,000 li. They saw modern farms, machines turning the soil, irrigation systems, improved rice varieties, and cold storage for food. They saw courts where a woman sought protection after being harmed at home and the law stood beside her. Pei Shuang held an employment contract and signed her own name with wages transferred directly into her account. She was no longer my maid, she was an assistant, a friend, someone who could refuse after-hours requests if she wished. Once, during a live stream, a modern viewer asked Pei Shuang, "Were you once a domestic worker?" She thought for a moment, then said, "In the past, I was a servant bound to a household. Now I am a person." For a few seconds, the comments fell silent. Then they flooded with hearts. In Dajing, that sentence struck like thunder. Servants in the great houses began to whisper it among themselves. Now I am a person. At first it was only murmured by the well while washing clothes, beside the stove at night, and while wiping floors after banquets. Then some maids fled. Some household men demanded to redeem their contracts. Some people resisted when a master tried to punish them without limit. The court panicked. They forbade the sentence. But the more they forbade it, the faster it spread. The Pei residence became a place people avoided. Not because they truly believed Pei Yan had been punished by heaven, but because everyone knew the Sky Maiden was once Madame Pei.
If one associated too closely with the Pei family and the Sky Screen later revealed something embarrassing, what then? Official circles were practical. Before, they praised his righteousness. Now they avoided him like an empty well. At first, old Madame Pei still indulged in fantasies. She took Linzhou and Minlan to the infinite realm. No matter what, they carry the Pei surname. In the future, will her property not still belong to the Pei family? When Pei Yan heard this, he became angry at his mother for the first time. "Mother still does not understand," he said, his voice strangely cold. "In that place, they do not need the Pei surname to live, and no one will hand property to the Pei family merely because of blood." The old madam was frightened by him. She was used to a filial, diplomatic Pei Yan, one who rarely spoke harshly even when dissatisfied. But since the Sky Screen appeared, it was as though some inner support had been pulled from him. At times he was silent, at times easily angered, and every night he looked at the sky until late. Xie Wan did not live easily in the Pei residence.
Her wedding day had become a miracle. Her title of second madam was protected by imperial decree, but every gaze that fell on her carried a layer of mockery. People did not dare criticize Pei Yan, much less the court's decision, so gossip settled on her, the woman who took the Sky Maiden's husband, the woman who cost the Pei family an immortal fate. She had once believed she loved Pei Yan and that Pei Yan loved her, but after entering the residence, she found that this man no longer looked at her as before. He was courteous, provided properly, and did not allow anyone to humiliate her openly, yet his heart hung in the sky. One night, Xie Wan could not help asking, "If I had not returned to Chang'an, would you have gone with her?" Pei Yan was silent for a long while. "Perhaps." Xie Wan smiled, pale as paper. "Then do you blame me?" "I blame myself," he replied. That sounded noble, but it was more painful than blame. In the modern world, I gradually learned of these changes through Yao. Dajing is experiencing social fluctuation. Escapes from bonded service are increasing. Women's petitions for separation are increasing. Some regions are experimenting with composting and seedling methods learned from the Sky Screen. I asked, "Is it dangerous?" "Yes, knowledge that changes order always brings conflict." I looked at Minglan studying in the glass room. She wore safety goggles, observing seedlings in trays and murmuring biological terms. That image was being broadcast openly to Dajing. I knew that on the other side, some would imitate it, some would be punished for imitating it, and some would pay dearly for challenging the old order. The thought made my heart heavy. Yao said, "The host may close the Sky Screen." I was silent. If we closed it, Dajing would return to what it had been. Women would remain locked in inner courtyards, servants would still be bought and sold, knowledge would remain in the hands of the few, and the poor would think hardship was heaven's decree. The Sky Screen could not save everyone, but it proved one thing: another world could exist. For someone trapped in a dark room, a single crack of light is enough to change the way they breathe. "Do not close it," I said, "but choose the content carefully. Do not show weapons, do not show anything that could create large-scale harm. Prioritize basic medicine, hygiene, agriculture, human rights, and education." Recorded. From then on, the Sky Screen became a strange classroom. Pei Hung taught people to boil water, wash hands, and clean wounds. She spoke slowly, using words Dajing could understand. At first, she trembled. Later, she grew used to it. Once she held up soap and said, "This little thing is not a talisman, but it can reduce illness. Wash hands before assisting childbirth, before bandaging, and before cooking." In Dajing, midwives laughed at first, but a village in Jiangnan followed the advice, and that summer, fewer mothers developed high fever after delivery. The news spread, and soap suddenly became precious. Minglan taught seed selection, soil preparation, and water retention. She did not reveal complex technology, only things that could be done with simple tools. She used models of soil, seeds, water, and light. Farmers understood. Local officials understood as well. Some wanted to forbid it, but higher grain yields were difficult for anyone to hate openly. Lin Zhou spoke of fair contracts and transparent accounts. Using modern business associations as examples, he said long-term profit did not come from squeezing people to the edge, but from trust. Some young merchants in Dajing learned from him, set clear prices, and reduced cheating with weights. The people preferred them. Old merchants cursed them for breaking rules, but money flowed toward places where buyers were deceived less.
Pei Yun taught cooking. This became the most beloved portion. Even though the court disliked the Sky Screen, the imperial kitchen secretly made pastries from her recipes. Princess Jingyang even ordered people to record every dish and opened a restaurant named Yun's, openly hanging a sign that said, "Learned from the immortal realm." When Ah Yao told me, I laughed for a long time. Jingyang was truly Jingyang. Others feared miracles. She found a way to earn money from them. 1 year later, we returned to Chang'an in a special way, not in body, but through a live call across the sky screen with Jingyang. She sat in the princess's residence, still radiant in red, though her arrogance in her eyes had softened. Looking at me on the screen, she smiled. "Qin Wan Yi, you live so well it is annoying." I answered, "The princess has also earned quite a bit from Pei Yun's recipes." She raised a brow. "Can I pay royalties?" I was surprised. "Have you even learned the word royalties?" "The sky screen says it constantly. If one uses another person's work to earn money, one should pay a fee." She tilted her head. "I do not know how to send silver to you, so I used part of the profits to redeem women sold into music houses. Is that enough?" I looked at her for a long time. Princess Jingyang had once wanted to see me lose face. I had once disliked her. But people can change after seeing another sky. "It is enough," I said. "More than enough." Jingyang smiled, but her eyes were red. That call shook Dajing more than any lesson before it. A princess of the imperial family acknowledged paying fees, redeeming contracts, and women are not objects. It did not overthrow the court overnight, but it carved a hole in a high wall. Pei Yan watched as well. He stood in my old courtyard, where the pear tree had blossomed. Shui Wan stood behind him, but said nothing. On the sky screen, Jingyang and I spoke as if we were people on the same level of the heavens, and no one mentioned him. What hurts a proud person most is not hatred, it is being removed from the story. That night, Pei Yan wrote a letter. He knew it could not be sent, yet he wrote it anyway. "Wan Yi, I once thought you were the harbor of my life. No matter how far I traveled, when I turned back, the lamp in your courtyard would still be lit. I forgot that the person who lights a lamp can also put it out and leave. If I had asked what you wanted back then, if I had not used a promise as a rope around you, if I had not been greedy." At that point, he stopped. In the sky, the screen had shifted. I was teaching Ming Lan to ride a bicycle in a park. She fell, then laughed and climbed back up. I laughed too, my hair tossed by the wind, sunlight over my shoulders. Pei Yan watched for a long time. At last, he tore the letter. Some apologies arrive too late. They only make the speaker feel lighter. The listener no longer needs them.
Chapter 7. The One Who Did Not Look Back. 5 years after our return, Minglan was admitted to a top agricultural university. On the day the acceptance letter arrived, she hugged me and jumped around the living room. Lin Zhou stood to the side recording the video, laughing at his sister for losing all elegance, though his eyes were redder than anyone's. Pei Yun prepared a great feast: Westlake fish, steamed shrimp with garlic, osmanthus cakes, and the spicy chicken Minglan loved most. Li Jing opened red wine, but was watched closely by Pei Hong, who limited how much he could drink. Ah Mu drove out to buy more party poppers and nearly received a warning from the community security guard. That night, Minglan spoke before the sky screen. She wore a simple white dress, her hair tied high. No trace remained of the ancient young lady who once blushed over short sleeves. She said, "I once lived in a place where girls were taught that the most important thing in life was to marry a good man. After coming here, I learned that the first good person I needed to meet was myself. I study agriculture because I have seen too many people go hungry. If one day my knowledge can help anyone, even one village, I will feel this life was worthwhile." In Dajing, many people heard those words. A village girl whose parents had promised her in marriage in exchange for an ox secretly ran to the county's newly opened girls' school, funded by Jingyang. A young lady from an official family tore up a book of female obedience and asked her father to let her study medicine. A widow opened a food stall using Pei Yun's recipes and supported 3 children. A group of farmers in Longxi tried Minglan's seed selection method, and the next harvest improved visibly. Not everyone succeeded. Some were punished, some were forced home, and some were lost in clashes between old and new. Every time Ah Yao reported such news, I could not sleep. But then other news came. A midwife saved a mother by washing her hands. A household worker used his wages to redeem his younger sister. A young county magistrate opened the granary according to a procedure Minglan had once mentioned.
Jing Yang established a fund to redeem women, was impeached by the censors, and still endured to the end. The world did not change in a single night, but it had begun to tilt. At 21, Lin Zhou founded his first company. He did not use the Pei surname, taking the modern Chinese name Qin Lin Zhou. When registering, he asked me, "Mother, will you be sad if I give up the Pei surname?" I answered, "A name is something you use to walk forward. It is not a chain that pulls you back." He nodded. At first, his company created educational content on classical culture. Later, it developed into a platform for teaching classical Chinese and traditional heritage. The funny part was that many Dajing viewers saw, through the SKY Screen, descendants using their writing to earn modern money and felt both proud and bewildered. Pei Shuang studied management and became the director of the family's charity foundation. She no longer lowered her head before strangers. Once during a meeting, a male partner joked that women were easier to negotiate with because they were softer. Pei Shuang looked at him and smiled very lightly. "I am not paid to be cute. I am paid to secure the best terms."
That video became famous online. In Dajing, maids in various households passed around the phrase, "not paid to be cute," although many of them did not yet understand what a salary was. They simply liked the way Pei Shuang held her head high. Pei Yun became a chef and a content creator, opening cooking classes. Pei Hong earned a medical support certificate after years of hard study. Li Jing became a known martial arts director. And Ah Mu became a tour driver who liked taking elderly neighbors fishing on his days off. Xia Du studied fashion design. Su Mei studied early childhood education. Madame Liu did not work, but every day she went to the square to dance with the seniors. She said that service contracts had eaten her youth, so she had to live extra in old age. As for me, I established a foundation to support women and children who had been harmed, trafficked, or abandoned. Part of it was for Dajing. Part of it was because the modern world was not a perfect immortal realm. In this place, too, injustice existed. People still used money and power to press others down, and women could still be trapped in invisible cages. The difference was that here, cages had locks that could be broken, laws had names that could be spoken, and roads existed to be walked. I was no longer Madame Pei. I was Qin Wan Yi. 10 years later, the SKY Screen in Dajing began to fade. Ah Yao said the linking energy could not last forever. It had completed the agreement, broadcast modern life, sow basic knowledge, and avoid direct interference in government. From now on, Dajing had to walk on its own. On the final day, I decided to say goodbye. On the SKY Screen, I stood beside West Lake. Ming Lan, Lin Zhou, and everyone else stood behind me. Wind moved across the lake, and willows hung soft and green. I looked into the camera, knowing that on the other side, millions of people were raising their heads. "I once lived in Dajing for 18 years, I said. "I loved people there, gave birth there, cried there, and grew up there. I also once forgot who I was because of the rules there. After leaving, I do not want you to remember me only as a goddess. I am not a goddess. I am merely a person who had the chance to see another road." I paused, then continued. "This world is not perfect, but it proves that many things you believe to be fate are actually rules made by people. What people make, people can change. Women are not born to be locked away. Men are not born to be forgiven for every mistake. Poverty is not a sin. Servitude is not destiny. Knowledge should not belong only to high gates and wide courtyards. If the SKY Screen disappears, I hope you still remember there was once a place where people said that every person is a person." Pei Shuang stepped forward and spoke the line she had once said. "Before I was a servant, now I am a person. So are you." Ming Lan spoke of seeds. Lin Zhou spoke of contracts. Pei Hong spoke of hand-washing. Pei Yun spoke of a full meal. The final image was all of us standing in sunlight, no one kneeling, no one bowing their head. The SKY Screen went dark. Dajing sank into silence for a long time. Later, Dajing's histories called those 10 years the Heavenly Screen Revelation. Some said it was a divine miracle. Some said it was a demon's illusion. Some said it was a collective dream. But after the Heavenly Screen Revelation, Dajing was no longer the same. The court went through many changes. Girls' schools were banned and reopened again and again. Service contracts were restricted and gradually abolished in some provinces. New farming methods spread. Commercial laws changed. Medical halls began to accept female apprentices. Everything was slow, chaotic, and full of tears.
but the wheel had begun to turn. Pei Yan lived to 72. Ah Yao later showed me his side story, like a faint record from the old world. He had no more children. Shui Wan was once pregnant but lost the child, and her health remained weak afterward. The two of them did not live in hatred, but neither did deep affection remain. Old Madame Pei passed away still resentful, believing until the end that Qin Wanyi had been too heartless, taking the Pei bloodline away without fulfilling filial duty. After the sky screen faded, Pei Yan often sat in the old pear courtyard. Someone advised him to rebuild an ancestral shrine for the Sky Maiden Qin, hoping to restore his reputation. He refused. "She does not need my incense," he said. In his final years, he spent a great deal of silver establishing schools in his hometown, accepting girl students as well. People praised him for awakening. He only smiled. He knew it was not compensation. A person who has left does not turn back because of a few late good deeds. Before his passing, he asked the servants to open the window. Dajing's sky was very blue. There was no screen of light. There was no figure of Qin Wanyi. He closed his eyes. What appeared in his mind was not the day she wore wedding robes and married into the Pei residence, nor the day she stood in the wedding hall and left. It was an afternoon long ago. She sat beneath the pear tree with an accounts book in hand, and when she saw him return, she lifted her head and smiled. At that time he had thought that smile would always remain there. It turned out that no lamp in the world is obliged to burn forever for one person. As for me in the modern world, I lived to 88. Ming Lan became an agricultural specialist and spent many years working on projects to restore poor soil. Lin Zhou built an education company and later turned toward scholarships. Pei Shuang, her hair silver, remained sharp. Pei Yun opened a small restaurant that accepted only reservations. Pei Hong taught community health classes. Li Jing and Amu, even in old age, still argued about which martial arts move looked better. We did not live perfect lives. There was illness, separation, failure, and misunderstanding, but none of us had to kneel in order to beg to be treated as human. On my final day, Ming Lan and Lin Zhou were both beside me. Descendants filled the room, some surnamed Qin, some with other surnames, some not related by blood, yet still calling me grandmother. Looking at them, I suddenly remembered the banquet of broken jade in distant Chang'an. If I had wept and clung to what was already gone, if I had stayed out of fear, this room of light would not exist. I closed my eyes amid quiet sobs. In the dark, I heard a cat meow. A round yellow cat ran toward me from the end of the road, tail lifted high, eyes bright as two pieces of amber. A small tag hung from its neck. On the front was engraved, Dodo 9170. On the back was my old phone number. I crouched down, trembling as I held it. "Ah Yao?" The cat rubbed its chin against me, and the system's voice sounded in my mind. This time it was no longer cold like machinery, but playful, like the old days when it jumped onto my keyboard. "Congratulations, host, on completing a life of freedom. After-sales service begins." I laughed. I said, "There is after-sales service?" "Of course. The next world is awaiting. This time, would the host like to keep a single wealthy identity with no romance mission?" I said yes at once. Wish recorded. Ahead, a door opened. Beyond it was another light, another wind, and a road no one had named for me. Holding the cat, I stepped forward. This time, I did not look back. The end.
Hey there! If you enjoy our audio content, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with everything Zuzu Audio. Support the channel and join our community today.